Okay, good morning, everyone, or afternoon now. Thank you for attending this webinar on the NOCN Foundation Skills Innovation Grant. My name is Simon Rennie. I'm the Director Lead for the Foundation here at NOCN, and next to me is Stacey, who is helping to assist with the webinar.
I'll just run through some quick housekeeping. So if you could post your questions in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll do our best to answer as many of those at the end as possible. Anything that we don't get around to answering, we'll include in an FAQ document, which will circulate as soon as that's ready. And a presentation, the recording and the presentation will be shared after the webinar, so you'll all get a copy of the slides. And at the end, we'll ask one single question. So if you could have your phones ready to go, and the code for that is at the top with menti.com, and then the code's ready to go there.
Okay, thank you. So just for those that aren't aware of who we are, NOCN Group is an international charity, educational charity, which delivers future fit skill solutions and social impact for education institutes, training providers, employers, and individuals. We are an awarding organisation and an endpoint assessment organisation, and we seek to be well, we also run the CPCS card scheme as well. We are basically an independent charitable organisation, so we're trying to influence policy, champion lifelong learning and vocational learning. And and we also aim to enable people to reach their potential and organisations to thrive. So we have industry and subject matter experts that provide high quality and robust, responsive service, adapting to the evolving needs of our customer stakeholders. As well as operating extensively in the UK, we also operate in around 30 countries across the world. So what we'll cover today is just an overview of the Foundation, the grant programme, and then we'll move on to eligibility criteria, grant objectives, themes, and eligibility criteria and who can apply. Some details on the grant funding, application process and timeline, assessment, evaluation, and what makes a good application. And then we'll move on to just some of the details on the grant terms and post-award expectations. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So we should finish by 1 o'clock. Okay, so introducing the foundation. So we launched the foundation last week. This is a sort of next step in NOCN's group evolution. So the purpose of the foundation is to help provide policy insights and research to support our stakeholders' thinking on skills policy. It's also a chance for us to give back to the sector and help industry identify what works. So helping both our stakeholders and our centres to identify areas for innovation. The foundation also provides an opportunity for our charitable members to learn more about our work and receive support. And we'll also be reporting on impact against our charitable objectives under the foundation as well. So, Skills Innovation Grant Programme. This is our first grant programme. We hope to introduce further ones in future years, so hoping next year we'll do something similar. But this is very much our first attempt. So we're learning as we go. And the purpose of this programme really is to support projects and ideas that attempt to trial innovative solutions. And basically the three areas that we're focusing on in this grant programme is ways we can engage with NEETs, so not in employment, education or training, to get into work. innovative and impactful approaches to green skills retraining, and innovative use of technology in engagement, learning, and assessment. So I'll cover on a bit more detail on those in a couple of slides. So grant objectives and what we're looking for. So the key themes, as I said, are these three areas. So the NEET population we're focused in on because it's such a growing issue. You may well be aware that there are over or almost a million 16 to 24-year-olds that are not in education, employment or training currently, which has grown by about 200,000 in the last few years. So we really want to try and help our sector try and engage with that population and support the country really in trying to get ideas around how we can engage, particularly with the hard to reach segments of that population. Second area is green skills retraining. So obviously within the UK economy, we have a big focus on trying to get to net zero, and there's a massive role in retraining workers to allow them to support that green economy. And we're interested in what approaches we can help to encourage that to take place. Thirdly, technology innovation in learning. So yeah, it's about how innovative ways to identify innovative ways in which centres can potentially engage with learners, help learners through their learning and their assessment. So particularly around digital tools, maybe AI, etc. So types of projects we're looking for. So we're really looking for things that could make an impact in one of those or one or more of those three themes. It may be a project that you're already doing or a bit of work that you're already doing that is innovative and already has shown impact and looking to upscale it. Or it could be something that is innovative but is yet to be tried. So it's sort of trialing it and see whether it does actually make an impact. Through these projects, we're keen that employers are also strongly engaged in it where possible. So, very much a sort of collaborative approach with employers is of interest to us. So in terms of eligibility criteria and who can apply. So the key thing to note is in terms of the applicant, it must be a NOCN group customer who have made purchases with us in the last 12 months up to the end of November 2025, so the end of this month. So in terms of delivery, in terms of the projects, it's about focus around England, Scotland or Wales. So not looking at funding anything internationally or in Northern Ireland at this stage. In terms of the application rules, so one application per centre is allowed. And as I said, collaborations are very welcome, but the contracting organisation must be an NOCN centre. So in terms of the priority and age focus, we're looking at impacting on learners and individuals aged 16 plus. So for NEETs, that needs to be focused around the age 16 to 24. But also it's important to note that in terms of NEETs, we're happy to support pre-16-year-olds if it's around avoiding becoming NEET. So we're open to proposals that cover that area. In terms of the purchase and registration requirements, as I said, it's open to NOCN group centres only. So that could be as an awarding organisation customer, could be as an endpoint assessment customer, or it could be as a CPCS test centre. So To be eligible to apply for a grant, you need to have at least £2,000 worth of eligible purchases over the last 12 months to the end of November. The grant is effectively up to 50% of purchases. So, for example, if you have purchased £2,000 of business from us, then you can apply for £1,000. The upper limit is 15,000 in terms of what you could apply for. So to apply for 15,000, you need to have purchases equaling £30,000 or more over the last 12 months. And as I said earlier, it's one application per centre or group of centres if you have multiple centres. I think delivery and target group we've already covered. And as I said, eligible purchases cover both qualifications units, ICVs or short course fees, endpoint assessment fees, or CPCS card or competency test fees. So in terms of the grant timeline, yeah, you've got up to the end of this month to make any purchases if you need to bump up your amount. If you're unsure of how much you've bought from us as a centre over this period, then please get in contact with us and we can let you know. In terms of the application deadline, so it's the 15th of December at 12 p.m. is the deadline for submitting your application. And then we'll go through a shortlisting process over the sort of January-February period and make our award announcements in March. So moving on to the grant funding details and structure. So in terms of the total pot, just to give you awareness, we're allocating up to £240,000 in this funding round. And obviously that will, in terms of how much we spend of that, will depend on the quality and quantity of applications. But obviously, please recognise if we get lots of applications in, then we will have to obviously trim some of the applications back. In terms of the grant size per project, so we're looking at awards of between 1,000 to 5,000 for the small awards, and then larger awards between £5,000 and £15,000. Duration of the projects can last up to 14 months. So we would start to fund from 1st of June 2026 and go up to the end of August 2027. The reason for that is to allow us to broadly align with the academic year, to give you some flexibility as well in terms of when you start and finish. In terms of match funding guidance, we do encourage match funding, so i.e. contributions from centres or employers or other collaborators to support the project, but it's not necessarily essential, but it's just welcomed. So in terms of the structure and funding, so the two tiers, as I mentioned earlier, small grants up to £5,000 and large grants between 5,000 and 15,000. We will potentially consider multi-year grants in exceptional cases, obviously depending on volume of interest and quality of bids as well. I think it's fair to say for the larger grant applications, they'll have a closer scrutiny and closer ongoing monitoring. So in terms of broad numbers, we're thinking about sort of around 20 to 40 projects we'll probably fund if we get sufficient interest and volume. And as I mentioned earlier, the grant duration is between 1st of June 2026 in terms of when funded activity can start through up to the 14 months. Okay. So as I mentioned, in terms of match funding, we do encourage match funding, but not necessarily required. I think for larger grant proposals, we would hope that there would be a degree of match funding. So the match funding could be cash contributions, or it could be in-kind contributions. So other partner times, resources, services, etc. And in terms of if you're able to get some match funding, then that will help in the grant evaluation process. So just to recap really around the application process and timeline. So if you are interested in applying, then please go to the portal, application portal. We've tried to keep the application form relatively short and concise, but to give us sufficient information to be able to make the assessment. We will share information on the links to the grant platform after this as well. So when you go into that platform, you can see the eligibility terms, etc., grant information. So we would obviously encourage you to read all that, and obviously maybe re-watch this presentation to make sure you're eligible, and then complete the application form. So yeah, in terms of the application deadline, just to remind you, 15th of December at 12 p.m. We will then do panel review and shortlisting, which will be undertaken by foundation committee members between January and February. And then we're looking to make the awards on the 5th of March, subject to us confirming that date. Okay. So yeah, just in terms of how we'll assess these applications. So the key areas that we'll be focusing in on in terms of any application through the awarding panel will be, is it innovative and creative? So we're not looking just to fund business as usual activity, things that were being done before. So it's trying to use new ideas that maybe other centres haven't tried before, or you think are maybe innovative. I think the projects must be feasible and realistic. So we're not looking for wildly anticipated inflated outcomes or impact. It's got to be a compelling case, basically, something that's feasible. We will look at value for money as well, just in terms of making sure that it's delivering good bang for the buck. As I said earlier, but not looking to fund that work that is already funded or business as usual. We are looking for clear evaluation plans so that we can identify learnings from the project at the end. And it's important also that these projects have potential for scale and sustainability. By sustainability, I don't necessarily mean that it will continue to work without funding at the end of the project, but it's got the potential to continue beyond the end of the project, subject to other things going on in terms of funding or other enabling factors. And obviously, it's got to be able to impact on the 3 themes that were mentioned earlier. If it hits all 3 themes, then great. That's so much the better. So once you submit, or if you submit an application, then we will go through an initial sort of application screening, just make sure that it's eligible. We'll then go through the panel to score and moderate. And we may, if you're then in the shortlist, we may request further clarification, further information before we make the final award. And then we'll do some basic due diligence checks before any awards are made. So in terms of reporting and impact measurement post-award, yeah, yeah, in terms of the application, we'll be asking you about how you'd measure impact and output and what those are. We will be asking for reporting at the midpoint potentially, or at least at the end of the project, in terms of monitoring the grant in terms of progress. For smaller awards, it may just be a single evaluation at the end of the project. Just depends on the project, really. And evaluation reports should be submitted during the project and at completion as well. Sustainability, as I mentioned earlier, we're not necessarily expecting it to be sustainable after the end of the grant period, but we would be looking to see that it is a project that could continue, as opposed to just being a one-off project due to circumstances that aren't going to continue beyond the end of the project. So just in terms of some of the conditions and post-award expectations. So as I said, grants would start 1st June 2026. The grant term can last up to 14 months. The payment structure, we're looking at probably 2 or 3 instalments. So we'd look to provide an initial payment, mobilising payment, and then we'll look to provide either 1 or 2 payments through the project, potentially in the middle and at the end. It's worth noting that we will be doing sample audits just to check in terms of spent money. And if money hadn't been spent, so if the project stopped or had to cease for whatever reason, then we would look to claw back that money. I think we've probably covered grant funding limits, funding restrictions. So the kind of things that we wouldn't look to fund are sort of general capital expenditure, core staffing costs, i.e. sort of business as usual staffing costs, and also qualification fees. So if you're buying qualifications from us, we wouldn't look to fund those. In terms of evidence and audit requirements, so we'd look to have, we'd ask you to make sure that you keep supporting evidence for any costs and be able to provide that in case you're audited. And as I said earlier, up to £240,000 in total is available, with higher value bids closer, subject to closer assessment. In terms of post-award obligations, so we'd ask that be using our logo in any promotions, and we would also like to publish grant details if you're awarded it. We would be looking to ask any people that have been awarded to attend the event on 5th of March. And we would also be looking to probably have an event in sort of October or November time next year to celebrate the learnings from the grant programme. In terms of any intellectual property rights, we wouldn't look to own any IPR. You would own it, but we may look to use outputs for educational policy purposes. Learning case studies, we'd ask that participants in learning events share their outputs and learnings so that we can facilitate knowledge exchange with our other centres and stakeholders. And as I mentioned, we would look to request that progress updates are provided and that you provide or keep records of spend. And that once we do make an award, you let us know of any significant changes in the project or risk of project cessation. So in terms of key contact information, so you've got here the website for the foundation. That's the link. You've got a link to the grant application portal here, and we will be including within there the FAQ document. So if you've got any questions, we'll log those and publish that as a link within that grant program on the front page. You can also find within there the key terms and conditions, or there's a link there to it as well. And in terms of if you do have any questions, then please email the email address shown here, and the phone number is shown here as well. And our customer services team will support you. Okay, so hopefully that may have answered some of your questions, but please feel free to put in the chat any questions that you have, and we'll try and answer those now. If we can't answer those now, then we'll certainly log them and put a response in the FAQ document after.
Okay, we'll start with Ruth's question. Are centre fees included as going towards the minimum 2,000 purchase eligibility requirement?
No, they aren't. It's a good question.
Can a centre submit this in partnership with a solution provider?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, we'd encourage that.
Are there any particular ideas, solutions that NOCN would specifically like to see, or are more likely to support via funding?
We're quite open as long as it hits one or more of those three themes. We don't want to be prescriptive. It's very much we're open to ideas and thoughts. So we don't want to restrict things. It's about you coming up with ideas that you think may work. So no, quite open.
I don't see any other questions in the chat or the Q&A.
Okay.
But if you do have any more questions, feel free to pop them in. Thanks, Julie. Would other organisations, for example, learners 16 to 24 plus, SEN, not NEET, be acceptable?
You mean non-NOCN centres? So I think, yeah, if you're working with other organisations, Julie, then very much encourage that. I think as long as you're a centre that's applying, that's fine by us.
If you're a non-profit and an NOCN centre but don't meet the minimum order spend, is there any way to still be eligible?
I mean, you do have the opportunity, obviously, between now and the end of November to make purchases. Happy to discuss your situation with us. If you want to put an email through to NOCN, then happy to pick that up.
Super.
Yes, we'll share the slides. So those will be sent out shortly.
As I mentioned at the start, we've just got a very quick question just to kind of gauge your thoughts on it, really. So at the top, you'll see the code menti.com. And then if you go there, you'll be able to type in that 8-digit number code just to answer this question for us.
Yeah, it's just helpful for us just to gauge interest at this stage. This is our first program, so it's very much it's difficult for us to judge interest. We're not holding you to this at this stage. It's just for our information. I think I'd also just remind people that there is scope to apply. If you're not eligible this year, there is scope to apply next year. The themes might be slightly different, or maybe building on those existing themes. But we will be looking to launch a grant program next year, similar time. So, if you don't have enough spend with us this year, then there's scope to obviously spend money with us, and then you will be eligible next year, depending on the quality of your application. Okay, all right. Well, thanks for that, and thanks for your time. And as I say, we'll be sending this information out to you, and we look forward to hopefully receiving applications. Thank you.